Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about how to build muscle and how best to do that. What are the components of building muscle, and what are some of the strategies you can implement to make sure that you're getting the most from your training and your efforts in the gym. Okay, so simply put, there's two ways that you can build muscle. You can lift weights and eat protein. Okay, so those two things together, lifting weights, eating protein, um, simply are going to be the best ways for you to add muscle to your frame. When it comes to protein, we'll talk about protein first, just because we'll get it out of the way, because I want to spend a bit more time talking about lifting, because that's really the main variable that's going to promote change for you and your efforts from training. So when it comes to protein, you want studies say somewhere between 1.6 and 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. Simply put, you could just pick 2 grams per kilo of body weight and start there. So if you weigh 80 kilos, aim for about 160 grams of protein per day. In conjunction with your training, that should lead to some good results over time. You want to space out your protein feeds throughout the day. You don't want to have it all in 1 or 2 sittings. Ideally, you're having some protein with every meal and every snack during the day. And remember, guys, the quality of your protein really matters. So we want to make sure that you're getting good quality protein in your body through your diet. Sources of good quality protein are going to be lean meats and fish, eggs, dairy, protein supplementation, so whey protein, casein protein, preferably whey. And then if you are vegan or vegetarian, you're probably going to lean into things like beans, pulses, lentils, pea proteins, rice proteins, things like that. So supplementation would definitely be a recommendation if you are a vegan or vegetarian, because it's going to be very difficult to get the required amounts through just vegetables and real food alone. So for the omnivores, people who eat everything, meat, fish, eggs, dairy, and supplements, whey protein, that's going to be your go-to. And then if you're vegetarian or vegan, look at your protein supplements, such, usually I would go for a protein blend personally, so a combination of things like hemp, pea, bean, whatever blend you can get, just so you're maximizing the intake of the various amino acids. That's how you're going to get the most out of your supplement. So basically, amino acids are the building blocks of muscle. So after you train, you create a little bit of damage, get the body into a somewhat anabolic environment. Well, catabolic first and then anabolic environment. Your body's going to use amino acids, which are, basically, that's what protein is made up of, amino acids, and it's going to rebuild the muscle stronger. So the response, it's basically what we call an adaptive response, where your body adapts. It thinks, oh my God, we're lifting these heavy weights, we should probably do something to make this easier next time we do it, and it'll use protein to do that. So weights, lifting weights, this is the main component of building muscle. So when it comes to building weights, there's a couple of strategies you're going to use to make sure that you're progressing adequately over time. In the industry, we call this progressive overload, which effectively is the increasing of stress on a muscle during weight training, or simply increasing some training variables, some training parameters over time. So there's 4 that I'm going to talk to you about first, and then we're going to leave one till the end, which is intensity. So we've got weight, so the load that you lift. Okay, that's the first variable that you can change over time. Reps, second variable that you can change over time. Frequency, so the amount of workouts you do in a week. And volume, the amount of sets that you do in a week. All of these things could be played with to promote muscle building over time. Frequency and volume typically comes down to the individual, how much time have they got to train, how many days a week can they train. As a coach, what I like to do is take everybody, take their schedule and fit frequency and volume around the schedule. So, typically I'm working with people between the ages of 20 and 40. Most of them don't have kids, some of them do. And what I always say is, well, tell me your schedule, how many days a week can you commit to the gym, how long can you commit for, and I'll base the program off of that. Training frequency, as I said, is just, how frequently are you training each muscle group each week. And then training volume is the number of sets per muscle group each week. Typically 10 to 20 hard working sets per muscle group is what I tend to go for, because it just proves to be the most sustainable for most people. And then we've got the big variables, which are weight and reps. So you can add load to an exercise over time. Think about it this way. If you are on week one, you've got 3 sets of 10. Let's say you've got a chest press, you're lifting 12.5 kilos. Week 2, you might find that 12.5 kilos is a little bit easy the previous week, so you're going to go up to about 15 kilos. That should be a little bit tougher. And then week 3, then you might try and increase that weight a little bit, just to make it a little bit tougher. Now, obviously, you're not going to go up in such jumps every week. So another variable we have is reps. Okay, so how many reps you do. So typically what I like to do is combine weight and reps together, use them as a variable over time. So let's say week 1, 12.5 kilos, we do our 10 reps with 12.5 kilos. Week 2, we're going to add a couple of reps and keep the weight the same. So we might do 12 reps for week 2, and then week 3, we might push it out to about 15 reps. And then if you're getting the 15 reps with relative ease, on week 4, we're going to roll back to maybe 10 reps, increase it to about 15 kilos, and progress that way. That gives us a nice, safe, and smooth curve, what we call the smooth progression over time, and give the muscles adequate time to adapt and respond. So weight and reps being, two of the most common variables that we tweak to progressively overload muscles over time. And then the 5th one that I wanted to talk about earlier is intensity. So intensity, there's a lot of debate about intensity at the moment in the industry. Basically it means how close to failure, how intense, how difficult is each set on the whole. There's some zealots who are very much in favor of training to absolute failure as often as possible. But from what I understand of the literature, that's not necessary and not beneficial for everybody. But definitely getting within some kind of proximity to failure is going to be more beneficial than not. So we use a concept known as RIR, reps in reserve. I will do a video on this in the future. But basically, it's a way of measuring how close to failing you are at the end of each set. So typically for most clients, I like them somewhere between 1 and 3 reps in reserve. So 0 reps in reserve would be you tried a rep at the end of your set and you just couldn't finish it. You couldn't move the weight from the point that it needed to be moved from. So if it's a deadlift, you couldn't pull it off the floor. If it's a leg press, you couldn't get the platform back up after it had come down. That would be 0 reps in reserve. But 1 rep in reserve might be you just about were able to do it, but if you really tried your best, you still couldn't get a consecutive rep after that. So, but somewhere for most people, 2 to 3 reps in reserve is fine. So it's tough to get to the end. It's very difficult. You might struggle for the last couple of reps, but you definitely could have done 1 if you'd absolutely tried. Typically, a good indicator of if you're trying hard enough is things like speed or tempo of each rep will slow down towards the end. So let's say you're going at a nice steady tempo, like 1, 2. If that's a leg press, like it comes down, comes back up over the space of about 1 to 2 seconds in each direction. As you get closer to failure, that's going to extend. So it might take 2 to 3 seconds per portion of the rep to get through each rep. And that's how you know that you have challenged yourself adequately. Lastly, we're going to quickly cover what not to do when it comes to building muscle. So number 1 that I'll get out of the way quickly is quit. Don't quit. It's painfully slow building muscle. It's a difficult process. It's hard to do. That's definitely not impossible. Everybody can do it. But oftentimes, especially in the social media age, we're led to believe that you can progress incredibly quickly. If you're young, you definitely can do this. If you're 16 to maybe 22, 23, and you go from doing nothing to lifting weights, you're going to see some really good gains over a very short period of time. Happy days. But as you get older, that gets more challenging. And then as the more trained you get, the better you get at lifting weights, the more experience you get at lifting, the longer it's going to take to see those little incremental steps in progress. So be patient, never quit, never fail is a good motto that I like to use with people. If you don't quit on your goals, you will never fail at them, assuming that you have most of the elements correct from the get-go. So don't quit. Number 2 is take yourself seriously. Poor diet, poor recovery, poor lifestyle choices are all going to stack up and go against you when it comes to getting the most out of your training and getting to where you want to be physically. So definitely put time into making some sacrifices, in the field of the things that you know you shouldn't be doing in your life, like alcohol, partying, narcotics, if that's your thing. Diet is obviously the most common one for people, like eating stuff you shouldn't be eating, and drinking stuff you shouldn't be drinking. So take yourself seriously, take a long hard look at some of those factors, and if there is a lot of them creeping in every single week of your life, you might want to sacrifice them, or at least drastically reduce the frequency with which you engage in these things to take the next step in your progress in terms of building muscle. And in this one, I say the best to last, is the cheat code for building muscle that a lot of people are going to be cynical of starting off. You might not like what I have to say, but I guarantee you that this is the number one thing that you're overlooking when it comes to making progress in the gym. Sleep. So sleep and sleep quality are really, really, really important, and contribute massively to your overall level of success. The better sleep, the more sleep up to a point that you get, the better your results should be from all the efforts that you're making. So 6 to 8 hours sleep is ideal. Ideally 8, but you can do okay or pretty well on 6, assuming that the quality is quite decent. You want to make sure that you're in a sleep conducive environment when you're sleeping. So, make sure that things like standby lights and electronics are covered or kept to a minimum. You don't want any unnecessary light in your room when you're sleeping. Make sure that you have a comfortable mattress, good duvet, good pillows, all that stuff does matter. And that your bedtime routine is in some way optimized to maximizing your quality of sleep. So doing things like reducing screen time, not being in bed on your phone, maybe meditating before bed, maybe doing a bit of yoga if that's your thing, a little bit of light stretching. I find audiobooks personally very helpful. Or even, if you have a partner, you're living at home with your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, take half an hour, 45 minutes in the evening before bed just to sit and talk. Maybe put a bit of music on, relax. Something like that is gonna be preferable compared to sitting on your phone or sitting there watching an action movie where you're kind of hyping up your brain a little bit too much before bed. And then obviously things like supplementation can help. Chamomile tea, zinc and magnesium are always good too. But really putting a lot of time and effort into focusing on maximizing your sleep quality, that's going to add up to a huge change over time. So there would be my basic tips to build muscle. There are more that we could discuss, but for the sake of not keeping you all day chatting about them, I'm going to leave it there. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave us a like below. Feel free to comment. And if you did enjoy this and you want to help the channel, give us a share us on your socials. It's always much appreciated. And I will get back to you guys real soon with some more fitness info, and hopefully you'll make use of it. Peace.